Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Culture Books podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by
Sheridan.
And this is the 6th of January, 2025. This is episode 25 of season 3 of this show. We're covering the book Use of Weapons. This is from the section of the book called Remembrance, and it is chapter 2. II 2. So we're counting down to something. We're not far away. Oh, who knows what it's going to be? Now, I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. I have my doubts about how happy 2025 is going to be, but I hope it's as great as it can possibly be.
It's going to be a wild ride.
It's going to be something, I hope we all get to the end of it. I have now realised that we've been doing this book since May 2023, which means it's something like 4% of our lives we've been waiting for Sheridan to finish the chapters. And for that, we apologise to our listeners, although I note that our listener numbers are actually been climbing quite a lot. Our over 150 people listened to the last episode.
I think I've had 3 jobs in that time.
That could well be. Yeah. Anyway, what do we do at this stage of the podcast, Sheridan?
At this stage of the podcast, you have 30 seconds to tell us where we are in the book so far.
Right. Are you going to count me in?
Yes. 3, 2, 1, go.
So we're following the back-in-time arc of Sheridan in Zakalwe, and we are getting very close to whatever formative moments set him on this path, and we are going to find out in this chapter where he came from, I suppose. So that's about as much as I really can even remember of where we're up to in the book. Last chapter he was on a frozen world, and there we go. Anyway,
I don't think you find out where he's come from in this chapter.
We find out more about where he's come from.
Oh, it's pretty vague.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so let me just finish because it's come back to me. Last chapter he was on a frozen world, and now in this chapter we are finding out how he got to the ritual wars on a frozen world. Yes. All right, now, Sheridan, as is our custom, it is your turn to badly recapitulate the chapter in 30 seconds.
Yeah, this could be...
Are you ready to roll?
Yep.
Okay, you're on in 3, 2, 1.
Zakalwe's on a ship, and he is with 2 people that are fighting and refusing to go into stasis because you don't really know why. They're just sort of arguing about it. And they spend the whole time arguing and or telling Zakalwe a boring story about some sort of king that wrote a book.
Right.
The end.
Okay. and you took no more from that metaphor?
I really want to ask you what the metaphor is, because, look, I don't know. It just didn't resonate with me that much, that metaphor. I couldn't work it out.
Okay. All right, so we get the classic Banksian
Cold open.
He was younger then. It's funny. Sorry, this is me now.
Look, I was younger when I started this book.
Our listeners were younger. When
I was in my early 40s.
For me, this is particularly resonant in that I read this book when I was 24, and my reading of it then is so radically different to my reading of it now. I used to think Zakalwe was cool.
You don't think he's cool?
No, I just see the wasted opportunities and the loss, and it's quite powerful and emotional for me reading it as someone in my early 50s now.
I think he's cool.
Okay, all right. We'll see what you think in 2 chapters' time, but. Anyway, so let's go back. He was younger then. The memories were still fresh. He discussed them with the frozen, seemingly sleeping people sometimes on his wanderings through the cold, dark ship, and wondered in its silence if he really was mad. So what did you make of this setting?
I thought it was a functional setting. I didn't really make much of the setting, actually.
So I again, going back to memories of being a younger man. What's that line of Billy Joel's? It's sad and it's sweet, and I knew it complete when I wore a younger man's clothes. Um, I've always thought this chapter was a nothing burger, and yet it's one of the chapters that I remember most distinctly.
That's funny because I've liked this book. I've thought it was a good book, but I did find this chapter a nothing burger.
I think you'll find in years to come that
I'll be like, oh,
you'll remember this chapter. I also think because of the sense of hopelessness and the way it deals with suicide is quite powerful.
okay, you're gonna have to explain that to me more.
Sure, we'll get to that when we get to that bit of the chapter. But I mean, Zakalwe is obviously. I mean, he's literally running from something. Um, there's to finish this first section though. There's this line: "All his past was indeed present, and everything that had been wrong present too, and correct." Which sounds profound, but doesn't say a lot.
There is another good line, which I think might be
Mm.
after the bit you're talking about, when he says he sat wrapped in a big thick towel on the bed and like somebody probing a diseased tooth with tongue or finger, unable to stop checking that it really does hurt every now and again. I'm like, that is actually what happens when you have a like sore tooth.
Oh, there's anything wrong in your mouth. You go,
Yeah, like I
yeah.
was like, that's a really cool line.
But you know, we look at our dogs. You know, when they have a cut or something, and you try to get them to stop licking it. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. Just carrying on. So we get the setting in this paragraph. The ship was called the Absent Friends. Its journey would take it over a century. It was a mercy voyage, in a way, its services donated by its alien owners to help assuage the after effects of a terrible war. He had not really deserved his place and had used false papers and a false name to secure his escape. Now, firstly, the name Absent Friends. It's a rather whimsical ship name, isn't it? And obviously, it's not a faster than light ship like we normally experience in this galaxy. So it's much closer to the low tech world that we saw Zakalwe growing up in.
Yeah.
You know, where soldiers were still riding around in horses at the start of it, and he was driving a tank, as a major at one point. Who do you want to speculate as to who the aliens who donated its services were?
No, I don't.
Doesn't seem like something the culture might do.
Why are they aliens?
Well, to Zakalwe, the culture would be aliens, or they're just an unknown outside party to the warring factions on Zakalwe's world.
Yeah, okay, I didn't think about that.
Okay, and this comes back to things that are going to happen later. My suspicion, and the text gives us nothing more than suspicion to go on, is that the culture have intervened subtly to try and end the civil war on Zakalwe's planet. And part of ending a civil war is you've got to find a way to get the belligerent fighters out of the situation. It's like recently when Colombia's civil war came to an end, there was a lot of pushing and shoving about you needed to make sure that the fighters on the losing side weren't going to be prosecuted, even though they probably had committed atrocities, that they had somewhere to go, that they had some way to earn a living. So even though you want to punish people for the terrible things they've done, if you want the fighting to end, you've got to find a way to remove people from the context. And letting... Zakalwe sounds a lot like here, use false papers and a false name. A lot of people in 1945 booking passage to Argentina from Germany were doing very similar things.
It doesn't sound like a very good way to escape though, because you pretty much frozen, not aging while everyone ages around you.
Yeah, but he's never going back to where he came from. That this is a one-way trip on a ship like this, because as you say,
yeah, but all those other people,
all the other people on the ship are also escaping the conflict that's just gone on, and are going in the hope of that they'll have a new life on whatever planet they're headed to, and the only technology available to them is cryosleep.
Okay.
It still seems a little cruel in a galaxy teeming with enormous starships.
To make them
Go the slow road.
And especially, okay, let's get on to the two people.
Sure, Aarons and Key.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they're kind of dumb because they're choosing to age.
Yeah, but their whole context is each other, and they don't want to. Neither of them wants to admit defeat in the fight they're having with each other.
Well, that's really stupid. Do you think this? I know that they allude to it at the end. They're secret, like they could be in love, except they're obviously not gay.
Yeah, they're just a feuding couple, just living through their context. I think this was actually written before Red Dwarf came out, so it would be interesting to know if you had because there's a touch of the Red Dwarfs to this ship.
Yeah,
slowly.
there is.
Yeah. And in particular, the way I can't remember which one, but one of these two has managed to turn off the ship's monitoring of the crew area, so things can get
Make
messy.
it really messy.
Yeah.
Like a what was the name of the main character?
Sort of thing Lister would do in Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
I don't know. So there's a line here. Aarons and Kai had started to argue, and neither wanted to be the first to return to the stasis of the freeze. There had been stalemate for 2.5 years. I just like the idea of stubborn humans being stupid, stubborn humans, even in a setting when it's incredibly dangerous for them to do so and actively deleterious to them. But they're probably, to an extent, I mean, they're going to a whole new world where they're going to be disadvantaged migrants with no social connections.
So why is Zakalwe awake?
Because he was the next one to be on the rotation.
Oh, that's right.
To be woken up.
Okay. But why did they wake him up?
To have someone else to listen to them argue. Because they were sick of only being the two of them, so they needed a third party.
Then, so what? Have other people woken up and have gone, screw this for a joke, I'm going back to sleep?
Well, they might have, but the suggestion is that just these two had been fighting with each other, and neither of them wanted to go back into sleep. So they're like, oh, well, let's just wake up the next guy on the roster.
But wouldn't there not be enough food? There's a lot of gaps in this.
This is a very large interstellar starship. The food is not limited.
But they would have only kept enough food for like 2 people to be awake for however many. That's like quite a big difference.
There might be overquotas. I mean, even a sublight starship has still got capacities that you and I can't dream of, and
where are they sleeping? Maybe the toilet fills up too quick.
Right. Well, obviously, none of these catastrophes occur.
I just feel like logistics on this has not been thought through.
Well, maybe it has, and maybe they've ignored your concerns. There's a line here where Aaron says the ship looks after itself. Aaron sighed, looking around the crew lounge. It was the only dirty place on the ship. Everywhere else, the ship's robots tidied, but Aaron had worked out how to delete the crew lounge from the craft's memory so the place could look good and scruffy. Aaron stretched, kicking a couple of small recyclable cups off the table. Now, I do love the idea of Aaron saying, oh, it's completely safe, it's fine, I know what I'm doing. But I wouldn't trust Aaron's to know how to mess around with the memory and safety of
But why would you want to live in mess?
Because everything else is just so artificially spotless.
If I had robots cleaning for me, I'd just let them go.
Well, I mean, you do.
Well, I've tried, but sometimes that robot vacuum cleaner, every 2 or 3 days, it doesn't make its way back to its port.
You've got to intervene and help it. Yeah. You spend more time servicing the robot than you would just pushing the vacuum cleaner around.
These robots that they've got sound much better than ours.
Sometimes people just like a little bit of scruffiness. I know I do. You can talk to me about my clothes pile,
Yeah, but I thought that was more like a failing of executive function than a general desire to
No, it's more I like it.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, my wardrobe is I look at it and it stresses me out, but I'm like, I can't deal with it. Increasing my anxiety and self-loathing.
See, mine's a much happier way to go about this. Okay, now what did you think about Zakalwe's name on the ship?
Livu or Darak.
Darak Livu.
Well, it's later revealed their combinations of.
Dark Ents and Livuerta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously picked them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the false name he's travelling under.
Yeah, actually, maybe this is a great chapter because you don't really know who Zakalwe is this whole book.
No. Anyway, it's a useful little throw that he's referencing his sister's names in his new identity.
Yes.
Okay, something to bear in mind. And I do love Key saying, it's Aaron saying, a lot of disasters have been caused by people who thought they knew what they were doing. Every disaster has been caused by someone who thought they knew what they were doing. Now then we get to how Zakalwe spends his time on the ship, and which leads us to the crucial moment here. Sometimes he would put a spacesuit on and go through the airlock into the storage sections, which were in vacuum. The storage sections made up most of the ship, over 99% of it. There was a tiny drive unit at one end of the craft, an even tinier living unit at the other, and, in between, the bulging bulk of the ship, packed with the undead.
Well, he's just like a creeper. I mean, you'd be bored though, right?
Yeah, and this is his way of passing the time is to go for long walks and
stare at people in there.
It's the place to go for long
stare
walks.
at people while they're sleeping. It's kind of creepy.
Pick out the sexy ones.
He doesn't do that, thank God.
All the funny looking ones.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
I mean, I used to know a police officer whose hobby, when in the quiet hours in the station, was looking through the database of the recently deceased for ones with funny looks on their faces.
That is
and then she'd email all of her colleagues saying, "Look at this funny deadie."
That's really disrespectful.
Yeah, it really is. It's creepy as hell.
I mean, I guess cops have a lot of trauma. I don't know, but I don't think that would fly anymore.
It wasn't that long ago. It wouldn't fly if they got caught. It wouldn't have flown if they got caught back then either.
Probably.
Then it comes to this little game he plays with himself. He would take out a pen or a silver torch and place it in the centre of the elevator car and just float there, watching the pen or torch, waiting to see if he had stationed it so exactly in the centre of this whole slowly spinning mass of the ship that it would stay where he'd left it. He'd got very good at this eventually and could spend hours sitting there with the suit lights and the elevator lights on sometimes, if it was a pen, or off if it was a torch, watching the little object, waiting for his own dexterity to prove greater than his patience, waiting for, in other words, he could admit to himself, one part of his obsession to win over the other.
I mean, this just sounds boring. I'd just go back to sleep, frankly.
Yeah, it does mention that he had the option to sleep the whole way through, and he thought, well, instead of just being cargo, he'd like to actually be in a starship.
Yeah, but he doesn't really do anything. Like, I feel like he could read a book or something.
Well, I would assume he's, you know what it's like when you're on holiday. You can spend a couple of hours reading a book by the pool, and then you want to go for a walk.
True, yeah, but I mean, this sounds pretty dull.
Now there is a little throwback here with his hobbies. Sometimes he tried to read poetry. Noting he's not writing poetry at this point, just
reading it.
Not even reading it, trying to read it.
But we've all been there, haven't we?
Yes.
I want to be cool, but this is so boring.
Yeah. There's another little line moving on. Nobody on this ship hasn't got problems, friend. Nobody out here not running away from something. And obviously, I mean, Zakalwe's running so hard, he's running under a false name.
Yeah.
But everyone on this ship, it's the end of a civil war. Everyone's trying to get away from the things they've done, or the things they didn't do. Yeah. And then in this sort of confession session, it has to be something pretty damn important and pretty damn bad, pretty damn evil to make a body up and leave like that. We all got to be running from something, whether it's something we did or something we had done to us. And then they say, well, some people just like traveling. It's like, yeah, nobody likes traveling that much. And I do think as well, it's people who haven't moved around the world underestimate just how hard it is to just get a job, get a place to live, and function in a whole new country, and that's let alone leaving planet. I think we've mentioned I've got a UK passport in my 20s. I went over and lived in the UK for a few years, and I did have family there, so I wasn't bereft
I was
of.
going to say, this is not really.
No. I wasn't bereft of connections, but after a couple of years, I realised that just even in the UK, a country with the same language, where I was the right skin colour, where I actually had family, I was still a fish out of water without all the social connections of being in the place where I'd grown up. And and to take a punt on going to a whole new planet.
But if you're escaping war, though, you don't really have a choice.
You don't really have a choice, but you're still people are going to take advantage of you. It's
it will be difficult,
incredibly hard. I mean, it's just all of the women who've had to flee Ukraine, they're doing things very hard in Germany and Poland these days. It wouldn't be fun. Anyway, moving on. So they're trying to get Zakalwe to argue. He says, I don't believe in argument, he said, looking out into the darkness, and saw a towering ship, a capital ship, ringed with its layers and levels of armament and armour, dark against the dusk light, but not dead. So that's a Stabberend reference there.
Right.
So he's saying, I don't believe in argument, and he's remembering this warship he used to be involved with.
Right.
That's going to come back. It's not cynicism, he said flatly. I just think people overvalue argument because they like to hear themselves talk.
I mean, that's true.
I mean, we've been in so many meetings where people just want to hang on to the microphone just so that they can talk and everyone has to listen to them. And they're not achieving anything by it. Well, what they're achieving is their own little moment of gratification. Everyone has to listen to them. But it's such a waste of time. So I have some sympathy for this. I think talking things through with people and making your arguments can be valuable in the right setting, but can't be taken for granted either.
Well, I just don't think humans are actually very good at making decisions.
People aren't very good at being convinced either.
Yeah, I just don't think people are very good at making decisions in a group. I think humans are better at reflection.
It's after the argument's been made and you've rejected them that you wake up at 2 a.m. going,
and you're like,
maybe yeah. And here we go. Here's more of this line. Most people are not prepared to have their minds changed, he said. And I think they know in their hearts that other people are just the same. And one of the reasons people become angry when they argue is that they realize just that as they trot out their excuses. So that's a young Ian Banks reflecting exactly what we were just saying. And this is a line that everyone else who's ever read the book has also highlighted because it's got the little dots under it. I strongly suspect the things people believe in are usually just what they instinctively feel is right. The excuses, the justifications, the things you're supposed to argue about come later. They're the least important part of the belief. That's why you can destroy them, win an argument, prove the other person wrong, and still they believe what they did in the first place. He looked at Aaron's. You attacked the wrong thing. So what do you suggest one does, Professor, if one is not to indulge in this futile arguing stuff? Agree to disagree, he said, or fight.
I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, I like the description of negotiating being a way to come to a conclusion.
How do you mean by that?
Well, negotiation is a way to come to a conclusion. It's the type of conclusion that I'm talking about.
Because, the next line. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, the negotiation is really just about resolving something.
Yeah,
Because you realise, oh, we're in a stalemate.
negotiations where you come to the transaction, though.
Yeah.
And it's saying, you want this, and I want that, and I'll give you a bit of what you want, and you'll give me a bit of what
And we
I
both want it over with, so we'll both give something up.
Yeah. Yeah. But no one's actually, in a negotiation, no one's even being asked to change their minds. They're just being asked to... Okay, that's a small cat attacking a painting. Hope you enjoyed that. And then after that, Aarons was silent for a while, drawing on the pipe until its red glow faded, then saying, "You have a military background at all, yeah?" He sat and watched the stars, eventually turned his head and said to Aarons, "I think the war gave us all a military background, don't you?" Which is a beautiful diversion from, Major Zakalwe, who was driving a tank, and his father was a big player in the government before the war. Yeah. And then we get to... should we put trigger warnings on this? Okay, then we get to the stuff that's discussing suicide. Twice, in the depths of the sleeping ship, he almost killed somebody. One of those times, it was somebody else. That's a lovely Banksian paragraph, isn't it? So it's... I mean, can you imagine if this poor woman who he's tampered with her ever knew that while she was asleep, this creepy weirdo tortured by his past had been messing around with her body?
Well, no, it's really, really bad. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing Sheridan and Zakalwe's ever going to do.
I think it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. And then he's literally holding her recorded brain state. He held the woman's recorded brain patterns, backed up onto the little blue cube, easily crushable. His other hand, finger resting on the small switch, could turn off her life. Yeah, in fact, it's absolutely appalling behaviour. Do you think it's in character with the Zakalwe
I
you've
didn't
known
really
so
think
far?
it was, actually.
Mm.
I don't know, but he's just thinking about it.
Yeah,
I mean, he's really bored.
yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't understand why he just doesn't go back to sleep.
And whatever trauma he's is in his very recent past at this point is axiomatically very recent. So I think that is part of why his behaviour is so terrible here. And then we've got the conversation with Key. "Well, tell me what you believe in then," Key said, leaning towards him. "Why should I? Why shouldn't you? Tell me, because I asked." "No. Don't be so standoffish. We're the only 3 people for billions of kilometres and the ship's a bore. Who else is there to talk to?" "Nothing." "Exactly, nothing and nobody," Key looked pleased. "No, I meant that's what I believe in. Nothing. At all." "They must have hurt you bad." "Who?" "Whoever robbed you of whatever it was you used to believe in."
But he hasn't said he actually ever believed in anything. He could just be like someone that is like a sociopath and never believed in anything.
Do you think the young Zakalwe that you met in that flashback chapter, he seemed to believe in a lot of things. He believes in the king,
True.
He believes in his father. That guy believed in things.
True.
He believed he really wanted to blow up that summer house where El Theomal shagged his sister.
Yeah.
Borrowed the tank to do it. And then we get to the story of the Philosopher King, with arguing over souls do exist and souls do not exist. It's a very long story. I'm not going to read the whole story out.
Thank
because
God.
It runs for 3 pages. You don't think it's just... I think what he's trying to make here is an argument about the pointlessness of theology and arguing about the ineffable.
Right. Well, I don't know what point was trying to be made there.
Okay.
I just found it very long
Okay.
and very arduous.
Okay. And now it's over.
Yeah.
And we're just...
I was like, thank God, don't read it to me again.
We're just skipping over it.
No, but do you think that's what it is?
I think the point of the story is that it doesn't actually matter.
Well, I mean, I thought the point was maybe just that they'd really run out of things to talk about. And they're getting very, theoretical and philosophical.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like sitting around the campfire or passing the bomb around. You start throwing out ideas, and they're not always, in fact, they're almost always really bad ideas, but you're just throwing them out there so people can shoot them down and everyone can have a bit of fun. But, then we got Zakalwe's response. Is there an ending to this story? He asked, holding up one hand.
He's like, I really want to go.
Yeah. No, Keith smiled smugly. There is not, but that is just the point. He shook his head, got up and left the crew lounge. But just because something does not have an ending doesn't mean it doesn't have a... And then Zakalwe's gone and Kai ends with conclusion.
Yeah, and see, that's what they were saying about the negotiating.
Yep. It's another side of that coin. Yeah.
It's just a bit weird that it's the same word that was used.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. Now, we've got the stuff with him being... Okay, he'd been revived nearly half a year later when he almost killed himself. And this paragraph, he remembered the searchlights of the Staber end and wondered how far they were away from it now, so far that even the sun itself must be weaker than a searchlight seen from space. So he's still thinking about that ship. And so then we've got the whole thing where he makes this bet with himself and he starts undoing his the helmet on his spacesuit. So he is quite a long way on the route to self-harm.
Yeah.
And then we get another flashback to Staber End. Staber End, the great metal ship stuck in stone, and a stone ship, a building stuck in water, and the two sisters, Darkent's Livuetta. And of course he'd realised at the time that he was taking their names, or something like their names, in making the one he masqueraded under now. And Zakalwe, and Elithiamel. Elithiamel the Terrible. Elithiamel the Chairmaker.
Is that that's the first time we've heard that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, the audience wants to know, Sharon, what kind of chair do you think Elithiamel's made?
I don't know. Electric chair.
Oh.
No,
okay.
I don't know. What type of chair?
Okay, I'm not going to spoil it. You're going to have to read the next couple of chapters, and maybe you won't find out. And then, it's a very dramatic scene, and you can literally imagine it in your mind's eye making the movie with, the suit starts beeping at him and the diagnostics are going off and things are getting increasingly nervous. Zakalwe, he tried to ask himself what the name meant to him. What did it mean to anybody? Ask them all back home, what does this name mean to you? War, perhaps, in the immediate aftermath. A great family, if your memory was long enough. A kind of tragedy, if you knew the story. He saw the chair again, small and white. He closed his eyes, tasting bitterness in his throat. It's a very interesting use of the word "this" here, tasting bitterness in this throat.
I hadn't picked that up, yeah.
I had not picked it up until now either. So anyway, in terms of what the chair is, we know that it's small and white. And in certainly the version of the book that I bought when I was 24, there was a small white chair on the cover. So
that was a bit of a spoiler.
Well, being on a depiction of the chair, it was not actually an accurate depiction of the chair, but anyway. Okay. And then this other line here, metal ship, stone ship, and the unconventional chair. So we're really ramping up on the chair and the ship here.
Yeah, he's...
Now, the big moment here, the torch swung, and just as the final clip came undone and the spot of light started to leave the inside edge of the suit to shine on his face, the torch flickered and went out. The torch had gone out. So his gamble with himself can't be resolved because the torch has gone out. And then he asks, how do I die now, he thought. Now, if you think that this whole ship with its evacuation is the culture trying to help these people reach peace, you think it's a possibility that there is actually some sort of culture intelligence running the ship.
Mm.
And they would be entirely capable of observing him trying to kill himself and
True.
Intervening at this moment with the torch going out so he lives.
True. But you don't know that.
We don't know that. But, I mean, what else made the torch go out at that exact moment? God. The culture's a little easier to believe in. And then we get a line here to finish. I'll finish up the chapter here. He did go back to his chill sleep after a year. Aaron's and Kai, their sexual predilections forever estranging them despite the fact they seemed like a well-matched couple otherwise, were still arguing when he left. He ended up in another low-tech war, learning how to fly, because he knew now that aircraft would always win against a battleship, and flying the frosty vortices of air above the vast white islands that were the colliding tabular icebergs. Now, I'm just going to... This whole idea that, planes will always win over battleships is something that was early World War II and a message that everyone took. And in fact, if you look at the results from, say, 1943 onwards, it's nowhere near true. But it's a popular conception, and Banks has carried it on here.
But these are flying battleships.
No. He knew that aircraft would always win against a battleship. So he's thinking of the Stabber end, which was his battleship.
But aren't they like spaceship battleships?
No, that was Stabber end was a watership.
Right. Okay, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, that's why
Well, I would have thought in this world, aircraft would beat battleships. Because they're like spaceships.
Well, yeah, but when he's the planet he goes to where he's involved in that ritual war on the tabular iceberg, that was pretty much, 1970s tech sort of thing going on there.
Well, I don't think his statement, given the technology, some battleships might be able to beat airships.
Well, they normally do, actually, yeah. There was a moment early in World War II when battleships didn't have very good anti-aircraft gunnery. But once they had radar-laid guns and proximity fuses, flying an aircraft at a battleship was a death sentence.
But this is a fake world where things fly in the sky.
Things fly in the sky in this world, Sheridan.
So, I don't know. I don't think you can use that analogy.
Yeah, but it was saying a low-tech war. This is low-tech
This is a world where people put it into stasis for years at a time.
But he's going to a low-tech war in his mid-tech.
I guess it does say a low-tech war. Mm-hmm. All right.
Anyway, that's just me quibbling with the ghost of Ian Banks there. But yes, so that's the chapter, and we only had one ship, Absent Friends.
Yeah, well, I guess
that's the winning ship for this one. What else did you take from this episode? Just glad it's over and we can move on to the next chapter.
Yeah, talking it through, I guess I got more from it.
Okay.
It sounds like it was pretty grim, whatever's happened to him. Because, whatever's happened to him, he's feeling the need to kill himself immediately, pretty soon up. It's clear something recently has happened.
Yeah, this is very proximate.
He's not, trying to top himself for the rest of the book.
Although he does engage in extremely high-risk behaviour.
Yeah, but maybe that's because... Yeah, but it's not... I guess maybe he knows he can't do it himself.
That's an interesting insight. Okay. Anything else you want to say? We've been going on quite a while. This is 42 minutes long.
Wow.
So there was a couple of minutes for people listening to this. It's going to come out a bit under 40 minutes, but yeah. Okay, that's all we got. All right. So hopefully, folks, we're not going to keep you waiting quite so long before the next episode.
You do usually ask me who the favourite character is.
Okay. There aren't very many characters, but...
No, it has to be Zakalwe, because those other two people are very
You don't
boring.
like them?
Well, they're just boring.
Yeah, they're not meant to be exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully, Sheridan will read the next chapter swiftly, and we'll be in your ears
Maybe
soon.
we could get finished before 2 years.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cool. All right, folks. Hope you have a good one. We'll see you soon.
Bye.